the hell that was. Top of the evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Monday night, the 9th day of December 2024. I don't know what I was trying to find. I just said the Bond theme, and then I looked down. It was a rapper saying something about cocaine and meth. So I'm sorry, Johnson. I did try, so I know that none of those apply to you. And it's only on the Mac, you know.
I am definitely not Hunter Biden meth sort of guy.
I'm sorry. I started playing that. I was like, what? And then I looked down and it said, no, it's not the Bond theme. It's the Bond Bats. And the theme of the rap song was about cocaine and meth. So I apologize. I apologize to the meth heads and the cocaine for that. So, but it's good to see you tonight, man. How are you? What you doing on a Monday night? Wait, listen, thank you for answering the call. Lori Mills got sick tonight, and she, we were going to have you tomorrow night, but we're grateful that you could come on tonight and fill in for her, and she'll be back next week. It's good to see you tonight. It's been a lot that's happened. We had your buddy James Akers last night talking about Syria, and I want to get your thoughts on that, but we got some other developing news tonight. The killer of this United Healthcare executive has been found. They've identified him. He's a sicko. I mean, of course, most serial killers that put, bullets in people's heads on the subway in New York are usually sickos. So nothing strange there. But I don't want to, before we get to that, I want to talk about Syria with you tonight. You've been over all over the world. You're former CIA operative. Are you optimistic that this is going to be for the better? James and I are of the opinion that you've exchanged a dictator for basically an Islamic caliphate. And I think the celebrations in the street that are going on tonight are going to soon turn to screams, because this group of rebels are hardcore jihadists, Brad. And it reminds me so much of Uganda, because I visited Uganda back in 1994, and I remember the government officials telling me then that Idi Amin was welcomed at first because Obote had been such a brutal dictator, and then Amin turned into be one of the worst killers of the 20th century in Uganda. I mean, he just purged that nation in blood with the Christians. What's your thoughts on Bashar al-Assad tonight finding place in Russia and this government and its threat to Israel and the world?
Well, I would say that the situation is much, much worse now, and by a factor of at least 10. There's a lot of things about this that are very interesting, and none of this is coming out in the news here in the United States. So for anyone listening out there, you're hearing it first right here with the Mr. Christopher McDonald's show. Some of the things that really float to the top immediately, just sitting back and analyzing this from the ground up. First of all, Assad has been backed by Russia for years to the tune of tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, seriously backed. Also the same thing with Iran. They've had close relationships there, a lot of backing out of them, and all of this. Now suddenly, both Iran and Russia pull out and go, well, tough luck, I guess, for you, my friend, and we're done helping you. That's very unusual.
It is.
Russia, if and Iran, if nothing else, they hang in there with their buddies pretty tough. So the fact that they suddenly turned their back on Assad is interesting. Now, there's some stuff that almost nobody knows about Assad. Assad is from an interesting little tribe in that area of Syria that is actually considered apostate by both Sunni and Shia Muslims. And what they do is actually fairly middle of the road. I mean, they practice Christmas and they have certain Christian beliefs built into their system. It's kind of a overall Muslim with hybrid Christianity built into it. So Assad and his father were actually both and have been very understanding of minorities in Syria. And for the most part, nothing perfect, but for the most part, people were not persecuted under those conditions inside Syria. Now that is gone. And these guys that are coming in are an offshoot of what they've gone back and forth and bounced around, and now their own little group. They were an offshoot of ISIS and then Al Qaeda, and then split off again, and all this. And now they've settled down. So it kind of interesting things. I was sitting back looking at this, going, okay, well, this just doesn't happen out of the blue. These guys are backed by somebody, and they've got some serious backing by somebody. So who is it? Clearly, it's not Russia. Clearly, it's not Iran. China's, they don't really have a dog in this particular fight. So who is it? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is Turkey. This is backed by Turkey. Turkey has come out and said a couple things that have got it confirmed in my mind. So this is being paid for and operated and pushed by Turkey. A couple of other interesting things. Now, Syria is majority Shia. This group is Sunni,
right?
And Turkey is majority Sunni. So you've got the Sunni guys joining up to go after the Shia country and get rid of this Assad guy who is considered apostate by them anyway.
That is interesting.
And who was very, very merciful to these different Christian groups and different religious groups, Sikhs or whoever was there. And now that is gone. Now this guy before, he's cleaned up his act in a verbal sense, the one that's now taken over most of Syria. And he's kind of cleaned up verbally what he says. And now if you start listening to him, he starts to say things that are very, communist, international sort of speak. So he's clearly in touch with those guys because he's picked up that vocabulary and way of saying things. But make no mistake, this guy has said quite clearly, not only is he going to slaughter the Christians, but he's going to slaughter the Shia too, because he wants to make Syria a modern Sunni-only country. So I mean, if you're in those places and you got the wherewithal to pack up and get out, because it ain't going to be pretty soon. So bloodbath is on the way, in my opinion. Very little. I mean, he'll come in and take over, and it's not going to be day one, go out and slaughter everybody and get your hands on. But it's going to build, and he's going to start going into this village and that village and cleaning out and do all this stuff. So it's going to get grim in that sense. And now nobody's there in a position to go against him. So who isn't in that area that would fight back? Israel's got its hands full with other things going on. The United States, again, an interesting aspect of this. The United States is, finally just, kind of a day late and a dollar short, done a couple things in the last day or two.
Yeah.
Their reaction has been just complete mute. They just haven't done anything. Okay, so now again, step back, take the 30,000-foot view here. Russia and Iran back off. That's not their way of doing stuff. Assad gets stabbed in the back, goes to Russia. He at least has made a deal to get taken care of. That's no surprise. The United States didn't take part of it, and Turkey is running the show and doing whatever the hell they want there, and nobody's reporting it. What is that? You add all that stuff up, and what do you get? You always hear me say this. Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. And in this case, I think it is. A deal has been made, and the United States isn't going out there and protesting too vigorously. They're certainly not pointing the finger at Turkey, because Turkey, they believe, is this ally in the region that we have to have. I don't necessarily agree with that analysis, but that's the theory of, especially of the Democrats. So what was the deal? There's a tit for tat in here that we haven't figured out yet. I don't know what it is, but something has been worked out with Russia and Iran out of this deal to allow Turkey to come in and just swoop in and gobble this up. Turkey, the strongman in Turkey, Erdogan, has long fancied himself the new ruler of the modern Ottoman Empire, and has done a number of things. We had that war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, where he came in with Azerbaijan and brought in foreign fighters and all that, and they kind of wiped up the Armenians that were in Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh, strategically is worth zero. It's a nice, pretty wooded area and, pretty place, but, very few minerals or anything of any value. It was just land, and it was to garner more. He made Azerbaijan into something of a puppet, and I think his intent is to do precisely the same thing in Syria. But what did Russia get? What did Iran get? What did the U.S. allow to happen in all of this? Because, like I said, there's deals in the background there somewhere. I guarantee it. Just don't know what they are yet. But something has gone on. And what is the end result? Not only is it going to be bloodbath in Syria as they do these cleansings, but now we've got another Afghanistan.
Yes, we do.
Another Afghanistan in the region. And it's a place where guys that are Sunni terrorists are going to be able to come in and do their rest and recuperation, and they're going to be able to, go to the doctors there and get healed from any wounds. They're going to be able to do training and all of that stuff and launch, terrorist attacks out of that area. So, and another thing too, that southern part of Turkey, there was always sort of a trail into that area anyway, and it's a long built up, very well established area where terrorists have roamed and controlled these routes and things like that for decades. So, I mean, this is made in heaven from the terrorist perspective if there's a Sunni group, and this is a real problem for the United States. And what do we have, bumbling Biden doing? And that's nothing. Nothing. I don't know how clued in all of this yet, but of course he can't really do very much yet on a situation like this because he hasn't been sworn in and won't be for another month.
Where does this leave him when he does get sworn in? I mean, the world's changed, Brad. I mean, if you think about it, what we've just talked about, buddy, this is a game changer in the Middle East because, as it was, there's been a history with Trump and Assad. 2017, of course, it really started in 2012 when Obama painted that infamous invisible red line, and he told Syria don't do chemical weapons, and they basically put their middle finger up to us and did exactly what Obama told him not to do. They didn't care. They didn't think he was going to do anything about it anyway, and he didn't. Well, Trump was different. Trump told Assad the same thing, and he said, if I find out you're using chemical weapons, there are going to be consequences. Well, Assad stuck his middle finger up to Trump, and Trump basically took out 60 of his air bases and put pieces of it in the Middle East as far as Iran and the Afghanistan border. And you didn't hear anything more about Assad for the last several years, and he's been very quiet. But Trump's not going to be dealing with him this time. He's going to be dealing with an Islamic caliphate, and Turkey is not our friend. I'm glad you said what you said about Turkey, because the Dems have this la-la land fantasy that these Islamic jihadists are who we back. And conservatives look at this and we shake our head, and we know damn well that the Turks they're wanting an Islamic return to ISIS is what they're wanting. They're wanting a return to the old Islamic Ottoman Empire control of the Middle East, like you said, where one party rules. And I think that we here in the West, I don't know if we get this. I don't know if we understand it. I don't understand it fully. The civil war that's even within Islam of these two factions, and they're willing to fight over it. They're willing to shed blood over it, and they don't care what blood they shed.
That's absolutely right, and that's a good way to be martyred. I mean, the very first question you asked me in this line is, where does this leave Trump? And I think if you'll allow me the use of a metaphor, I'd ask, I don't know if you've ever had a dog, but if you have, you take the dog to the park on a leash, you walk him around, and he takes a gigantic poop, and then you have to get out that bag and pick that hot glob of poop up.
I've got a dog, yes.
In your hand.
Yes.
Okay, well, when you're holding that in your hand, that is what Trump has inherited out of this. He's got that big glob of stinky poop in his hand and is going, yes. Oh, my God, what a last-minute way to just dump on the entire planet Earth that Biden could manage to put together. And this is enough. They're criminal. Going back, we're still cleaning up the mess that Jimmy Carter left.
Yes, we are.
These problems in this area of terrorism and the amount of murders. That's Jimmy Carter that put the mullah in power in Iran and caused all of this. Where the Shah, was the Shah a perfect angel? No. But what was he doing? He was suppressing all of the terrorists and all the guys out there doing stuff. And yeah, it's not a pretty business. He was killing some of those guys, but he was a fairly well-controlled, far fewer people died. It was a safer place to live. Iran in those days was a beautiful place, and women were doctors and lawyers and everything else they wanted to be in the society. They were free to do whatever they want. Well, you can't see any of that now. It's just shambles what's happening. A lot of this stuff you could also lay at the feet of Obama. It's a mess. Every time Democrats get in power, they screw things up, and it takes decades to work our way out of it.
Yeah, it does, buddy. Well, I will say this: it's an interesting take, and you're right. I've not seen anybody reporting that Turkey was behind this. Our media here is claiming that they're actually giving Joe Biden credit for toppling Syria. I was watching our local news of all things tonight, and the idea on the local news was that the Biden administration put pressure, on the Assad regime and Joe's to the rescue of the Middle East. And I think that this is not wise of the media, but what's new, the media don't have a brain to begin with. But I'm sitting here trying to chew on this a little bit because, Turkey has, at one time before Erdogan, they were a moderate state, Brad, and he has taken that nation so far left. And it's not just America tonight that I might think we might be concerned about. Israel, if I'm Benjamin Netanyahu, he's got a new enemy tonight, does he not?
Oh, yes, absolutely he does. There's no question whatsoever, right? It's just, like I said, the situation is much, 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 much worse now. And I'm being serious when I say by a factor of at least 10. You've got a second Afghanistan. You've got more threat against Israel. I mean, it's the bloodbath that will take place inside Syria. I mean, it's hard to come up with something that you could do that would be more stupid. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised if, from Biden's perspective, that he's somehow involved in the tit for tat behind the scenes that has allowed this to take place, because he thinks that this is some sort of grand policy, foreign policy victory that's sort of his farewell to the presidency sort of thing that's going to leave him, that history will look back at him kindly because of his genius to do this. But, intimidate, the press is reporting that he was calling Assad and putting pressure on him and stuff. And just, again, kind of take a step back and look at the facts. You've got a president who's going to be out within a month, who's got brain damage, can't hold a sentence together, is reported in the press now, going, my such and such reporter, and they've asked him a question, he's going, who? 5 seconds later, he can't remember who he was talking about. I mean, the guy's brain damaged. Clearly deteriorating mentally just at a prodigious rate. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if he's alive a year from now at the rate he's going. So a guy who's going to be out of office in a month, who's brain damaged, calls you up and says, "Oh, you're not doing what I like. I'm putting pressure on you." Well, I don't think he could scare a 12-year-old kid anymore with the stuff he's saying. It makes no sense. It's the press covering for a half brain dead president who's, has allowed this to take place. But as I said, I repeat, somewhere behind the scenes there's a tit for tat. Russia and Iran are getting something out of this. Turkey is, are they giving something up? What are they doing? Maybe, like, for example, there is in Ukraine, there is a very small Turkish minority. These were originally nomads that were in that area that finally settled down and are in an area. So Turkey has always had kind of like their toe in the door of all the situation in Ukraine because of this Turkish minority. Did Russia say, Russia's got its hands full with Ukraine? So, maybe they didn't want to take on the Assad problem in Syria, and they looked at Turkey and said, okay, we'll let you take it over. You keep them out of my hair. I don't want to have any problems with them. And your minority in Ukraine, you assign to me. And, they're going to be part of Russia now. And you back off all of your claims into that. That is a deal that could have taken place between Russia and Turkey that would make some sense. And Russia could have gone to Iran and said, this is the deal, my friends, this is what we're going to do. And Iran would have gone along with it if Russia said so, perhaps. Something like that. Like I said, I don't know. But there are things like that have gone on in the background that we haven't found out yet. But I think that stuff will come to the surface, especially under the new regime when Trump gets sworn in.
Well, he's going to have a mess. There's no doubt about it. I got to ask you a question that's related to this, maybe in a way, and maybe it's not. Do you think that there is a possibility, a chance that Joe Biden is, maybe not even Joe, but whoever is calling these shots from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue tonight, are they deliberately trying to stoke a major conflict before Inauguration Day to maybe, and this is just not conspiracy talk, this is just a thought, that they're trying to find any way they can to make sure Donald Trump does not put his hand on that Bible, including starting a world conflict that we're called into war and them claiming, well, we've got a national emergency, we can't have an inauguration. Do you think that's anywhere in their thinking and all this crap they're doing? That's just a thought. It's just a question. Between friends.
If it is what they're thinking, they're going down a path to get themselves shot. That would be a mighty stupid thing to try and do.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would stand for that. I think most of the Democrat Party would walk away from the Democrat Party for that sort of shenanigans. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's thinking it, but I would be surprised if anybody who's serious, who's in a position of authority, is actively considering something along those lines. More just of like wishful thinking sort of stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like, this is such a hard question to answer because all the stuff that they do all the time is just so effing stupid.
I know.
And it that they obtain are the opposite of what they say they want all the time. So looking at it from their perspective, they think they're doing God's work and that they're the supreme being and that they're doing what's right for mankind and anyone that doesn't agree with them is evil and all of that. So I think they just run around in their own circles like bobbleheads and only hear what they each have to say. They really are completely incapable of envisioning anything outside the box that they've put themselves in. So I think they think what they're doing is wise. I think they're figuring it's our last chance to do something good before Trump gets in there and screws everything up. So I don't think, most of these guys I've met are not grand master planners or anything. They're doing, they're following all the handbooks of how to take over a country using communism and stuff. They always deal that. I mean, if you look at the stuff that they do, taking over healthcare, for example, but all the stuff they do, the education, all those things, it's right out of the handbook, and they just keep banging away until they get their way, and they're willing to do it incrementally. And if it takes them 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, they don't care. They just keep going and going and going and going. And we have weak presidents that are Republican. I would say George Bush, the son,
right,
was quite weak. And of all decisions to make, we get 9/11 and he attacks Iraq. I mean, instead of Iran, that's the center of the actual problems. I mean, that was dipstick. He picked something that was politically expedient versus what's the right thing to do. So very weak individual, weak as a president, very mediocre, better than Obama, or certainly better than Biden, but not by that much. And so it's one of those things that when you get guys like that in there, they just don't fight back that well. They allow stuff to happen, and that's how we find ourselves in these messes. That's why we've gotten to the point where we need a guy like Trump.
Yeah.
Because he'll fight back and start moving the ball the other way down the field.
Yeah, we will. The other story that is, I could talk to you all night about this, but I want us to move on to some other things because there is some brother breaking news. And bear with me here, we got a little blip. But the big story tonight is that there has been an arrest made with this shooting of the United Healthcare executive, and I know a lot of people have seen the video. I mean, the kid was walking right in broad daylight with the silencer on that gun and put bullets in that guy's head, and there's been a lot of circulation rumors about who the kid was, who even the UHC healthcare guy was. What was your take on all this when you heard about all this? Do you think there's more to this story? Do you think it's a random killing of a nutcase kid, or what's Brad Johnson's intuition telling him about this tonight?
Well, that kid came from a wealthy family and was lined up to inherit quite a bit of money. So I don't know. I mean, you can have crazy in any socioeconomic group. I don't. If you're a rich family, doesn't mean you can't be crazy. But
That's true.
I don't know on that score. I mean, what I think so far is, first of all, these guys in the insurance business have really become cads. I mean, there's some pretty nasty people in there, and the decisions that they're making and stuff are pretty heartless, for the bottom line to make more money, and denying people and setting up, they've supposedly set up AI programs to go in and that are looking for ways to deny claims and to deny coverage for people, and many of these are on the expensive items. So life-saving surgery, the percentage of people that have been turned down is just growing and growing and growing. It's more expensive, and so they want to deny as many of those as they can, and that's when these people die. So if you also look at what was the reaction after this guy shot the first 3 or 4 days,
the left was going crazy.
Yeah, the majority of the people who commented were going, yeah, this guy probably deserved it.
Yeah,
it's probably somebody whose dad or mom or something was denied surgery and all of that, who had the coverage and had the insurance and it should have been covered, but was denied for some little tiny excuse, and it was payback. I think it might have been that, but I don't know. Maybe the guy's just crazy. But why would he pick that guy? A healthcare CEO. I mean, an unknown individual. It's not like shooting John Lennon, to get famous or something. It was just some CEO that was unknown to the public. So I think it was tied to some sort of damage done to that young guy's family by this guy. So, and there's a lot of that. I mean, and interesting that his company came out and said, well, we're not changing any of our policies. We're still doing the same stuff. They're doubling down, which is interesting too. I hope that this brings this under some scrutiny and actually there's some pushback. I would point out, I mean, the way this is headed, what everybody's after here, the big insurance companies are seemingly going along with it, kind of like lambs to the slaughter. But the way this is headed, and what they're pushing for on the Democratic side is single payer, which single payer is just a fancy name they make up for government-controlled health care, where there's only one type of health care. And that's what they mean by single payer. There's only one healthcare system, and it's the government-run one. Well, that sucks completely. Anyone who thinks that's a good idea is a moron. And you may quote me at any time on that one. I just take England, for example. England just came out with a couple of interesting things. And if you have a child with who's spectrum, who has sort of developmental problems in that sense, they came out with now that you can get to a specialist in autism, and your appointment will be the ones that they're scheduling right now. So if today I call, if I had a kid that was autistic and I needed to get him to a specialist to look at him, and I just figured it out, the next appointment available is in 2043.
Wow. Goodness.
This is 2023 still, boys and girls. 2043, 20 years out to get an appointment. 20 years out. And they just had speaking of life-saving surgery for the big cancer surgeries and stuff, they also came out with another thing. They're so proud in England because they just shortened the wait time from when you're declared by your doctors to need this life-saving surgery, cancer surgery, as to when you can get it. They shortened that time down to 18 months. 18 months for life-saving cancer surgery? They're all going to be dead. And so they say, we don't have death panels.
Right.
And what they do is they set the time so that they don't. If you can live 18 months with this cancer that's killing you, then it wasn't that you may not have needed that surgery to begin with. But almost all those guys that get to that point are going to die in 18 months. So that's what they're doing. They're setting that out far enough that they don't have to spend that money because it's a single payer system. It's not out in the private sector. It's run by the government, and therefore they have to have tax money to pay for it, and there's limits on the tax money, so this is what you get. They deny it's death panels, but what is it? It's people who decide whether you live or die.
Death panels. It's death panels. It's
Yep.
exactly what they say it's not. So what I'm hearing from you is that you believe this is insurance related. You think this is not, and because my next question to you was this, is there a possibility, because the country's fascinated on this tonight. It was on every major news network. I was at dinner and they were flipping the channels in the restaurant, and this is the story tonight. And Syria has been sort of pushed on the back burner. And of the two stories, and it's nothing against the man's family. Look, our sympathies to his family. It's a man, he was a father and husband and kids and so forth. And You know, we hate to see anybody get gunned down like this. I don't care who they are, but is this something that's sort of smoke screening more important stuff, or do you think this is just ultimately going to be the fascination of the media, and you're going to get down to it, you got a disgruntled kid because he didn't like his insurance coverage? I mean, wouldn't that be a peach?
I would say that's going to be the case.
Okay.
You know, you never know. There may be something more underneath this. I tend to not think that there's any sort of smoke screen thing going on, that they drummed this kid up to go shoot somebody so they could use it to cover up for Syria or whatever. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a relatively straightforward case. Also, I think this is one of those things that's going to drop out of the media here by Friday. It'll be gone.
Okay.
You know, they'll come out with whatever news on this boy. Everybody will make up their mind on why they think he did it, and that'll be that. I think if it is an insurance thing, like grandma was not allowed to have her insurance cover her emergency surgery sort of thing, if it's something along those lines, I think they'll try to cover that up.
Okay.
That I think would happen. But
we'll cover it. We'll figure it out, and when we get you back on, we'll definitely follow up on this. And interesting. A couple of other things since I've seen you last. The illustrious Hunter Biden has been pardoned, and I just, when I first heard about it, the reaction to it was hilarious to me, because you had a lot of people on the right that were just shocked, and I thought to myself, who in their right mind believed 6 months ago or whenever this was that Biden was out there and they were asking him, are you going to pardon your son? No, I'm not going to pardon my son. I believe in the rule of law. I'm trying to do my Joe Biden impression, but I can't be told, like, I shouldn't be ugly tonight. But he said, no, I don't believe in messing with the law. And none of us believe that. Conservatives didn't believe it. I don't think the Dems believed it. I don't believe the media believed it. But it was put out there as he was the defender of justice, Trump was the felon, because that's the narrative they had to give. Well, give me a break. I mean, his son is pardoned. To Brad Johnson, what is the most grievous thing about this? Is there anything grievous? You know, we got in a little discussion in the chat room the other night. There was a few people that did not believe that it was politically motivated to even go after Hunter Biden. And I think that it's a fair statement. Both sides tend to grind out their political differences in these courts, and it's not healthy for the country, buddy. Look, I think if Hunter Biden committed a crime, go after him and give him the same treatment as you're giving Trump. But they did something to Trump that was so egregious that they had to almost sacrifice a lamb. They almost had to offer up Hunter Biden to make the right not feel like that they were doing the lawfare against Trump. And all along, I think this was the plan, that he was going to get pardoned anyway, so it wasn't like he had any worries when he got that guilty plea and guilty, situation out in California. And what's your thoughts on all this? I mean, I'm sort of just shaking my head at it, because I think that if I was Donald Trump, since Joe pardoned Hunter, I'd just be opening up the jails of the J6ers the first day in office, and payback would be good. I mean, fair is fair, right? Yes.
A couple of things, too, on Hunter Biden. I mean, those videos that he had on his laptop and stuff with like 12 and 13-year-old girls and stuff like that, smoking meth, those happen to both be illegal. And his deal with Burisma, where he was making, I think it was $80K a month, and it was influence peddling, using his father, who was then the vice president of the United States, to fire the prosecutor and stuff like that was going after Burisma. So corruption galore. And let's not forget these checks that they were getting from the Chinese government. That's all illegal and corruption as well. So I think there were a lot of people involved, and Joe Biden had no choice. I think he had to pardon Hunter Biden, because if he didn't, they start prosecuting these cases, they're going to discover a lot of this stuff, and they would go after Joe Biden's brother, who was involved and got some of the Chinese money, according to the reporting that's out there, and all of this sort of stuff would start to come out. And let's not forget, a lot of that would probably lead back to Biden. I doubt he was doing any of this stuff without at least some level of awareness out of Biden. And was Biden making, was Obama making any money out of this?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think it was one of those things where he just had no choice. I mean, it was probably one of those things where they were saying, you're going to have to pardon him or we're going to have to kill him. So what's it going to be? So I think that was really his only choice, because there were just so many people that would have been involved. The corruption going after Trump is absolutely atrocious, beyond the pale, and they threw out the laws of the land and the Constitution and there's so many federal laws, and nothing was done. I was gratified. Trump came out and said in an interview with, I think it was NBC, I forget now who, but it was one of the reporterettes that they had on one of the old
NBC
networks. Yeah, NBC, and she asked a question if she was going to get rid of Christopher Wray, who was supposed to be in place until 2027, and he goes, "Yeah, you're going to get removed. The guy invaded my home, and he basically broke all the laws to go do it. It was completely unprecedented. Nobody had ever done anything like that.
No, he did not. And let me ask you this, Brad. This is a opinion question, but it's a very important opinion question. And I heard him say something today or day before, maybe it was yesterday in one of the interviews, same interview. And I disagreed with what he said. And this is what the question was framed. Are you going to go after Joe Biden? And he said, no. He said, my greatest revenge will be success. And see, that's the attitude he brought in to the 2016 affair. And the Clintons had broke all these laws. They had basically working to get Trump in jail. Hillary was calling him, claiming Russia collusion. She put him through literal hell for 3 years because this hag didn't get her way in 2016 with this Russia lie. And Brad, they have made this family's life miserable. His friends, Roger Stone would have never seen jail if he wouldn't have been a friend of Trump. I can't think of the other one, Manafort, Steve Bannon. What's the other guy? Peter Navarro. That's now with the cabinet. Look, there are people that were unethically charged with crimes that spent time away from their family in jail, man. And if I was talking to President Trump tonight, now I don't know if it was just giving it lip service right now to get the media off his back till January and then all hell's coming. My question to you is this. I know that there's this thinking that the country needs to heal from this stuff, but I don't think we can heal until there's retribution for what's been done to our justice system by these bastards on the left. And it starts with people dealing with what they did to him with this Russiagate, with the impeachments, with the J6 crap. Liz Cheney needs to be in jail tonight. There's reports all out there tonight that she suppressed evidence that showed Trump's innocence, that showed the innocence of these people. These people have spent 4 years in jail, man, with no food, water. There's stories coming out of these jails. Gateway Pundit has highlighted all of these. Del Ricky and Toro, we've had him on this network. I mean, he's sitting there being basically tortured in many ways from what we're understanding. Something has got to stop, and you don't stop this crap until you put somebody's ass in jail for it. And I disagreed with what he told her. And I said, no, you can't just not. You've got to address Joe Biden. You've got to address the left. You've got to address what they've done. I hope Kash Patel is listening to me tonight, because it's going to come to him, and it's going to come down to the intelligence agencies and the law enforcement agencies of the country, the Attorney General, Brad. They're going to have some balls and let the American people know that, the rule of law matters, and it don't just matter to the left going after the right. It matters to all people, and the left broke the law in doing these things. That's my diatribe. My soapbox, as James Akers calls it. So that's my 5 minutes of it. Tell me what you think about it. I don't think you can get past this. You've got to address it.
Well, I would separate this into two issues. I agree with what Trump said. The question was, are you going to go after Biden? And he said, no, success will be my revenge. I think that's precisely the right answer, very professional and all that. Now, let me separate this out with what I think is the most of what you're saying there. going after Biden is a losing proposition. He's a dying old man who's senile and isn't going to know why he's in court or anything like that.
I'll agree
so
with that.
Set Biden aside. He's going to die. You're not going to get anywhere going after him. Now, could his pardon be challenged that he did for his son because it's so sweeping and so on? Maybe there's some possibilities that could be challenged in some ways because, it just was such a sweeping pardon. That remains to be seen. But now going after people like, okay, Trump has already said he's firing Christopher Wray. Well, that's a step right there in the right direction because he's one of the guys that's been involved in all this. And he's already said he's going to clean house at the Department of Justice. So if you can clean house at the FBI and DOJ, this is addressing all of those things that you said because those are the guys that were signing the FISA warrants against Trump, all this corruption that's taken place, that using the Department of Justice and the FBI for political maneuvers and goals against political enemies. That is absolutely has to be addressed. It cannot be allowed to stand. But Trump, I think, has been quite clear that he's going to go after that.
Right.
And Kash Patel has been, he's been talking about, how we have to clean house. We can't allow this corruption to go on, that sort of thing. So I think if you separate the two things out, he's going to go after those guys really hard to clean house there. I wish he would do it at the CIA. He's not going to, but he should. It's a horrible oversight on his part. If he does not go after the CIA in the same way, I would go after DHS to a lesser degree, but also because there's a lot of these problems there as well. And for that matter, pretty much all of the three-letter, government agencies that are out there. But those are the ones. You have to go after FBI. You have to go after DOJ. Clean house. Make them, poster boy clean. But you got to do it at the CIA and DHS too. And DOD's a little different, but that could use some house cleaning as well.
Okay. Do you think that this idea of, because I know you've read the story about the preemptive pardon that's being pushed out there, that he may preemptively pardon Miley? I heard General Miley's name come up, Liz Cheney, Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland. I mean, he's listed all the actors, Brad, that has put this country through hell for 4 years. Like, he's going to preemptively pardon him when nothing's been charged. Look, I don't see how you can legally do it or constitutionally do it. I'm not saying he's not going to do it. And I'm with you on the Biden thing. I don't think that Trump gains anything by going after Biden. But I tell you what, all these people that have done these evil things to the right because of their hatred for Trump, I would release Kash Patel and his DOJ as Attorney General and say, look, you got to do what you got to do. I'm a lame duck. It ain't going to hurt me any. So go get your job done and let's start afresh and let's give the country a breath of fresh air. But do you think there's any real thing that he's going to do to preemptively pardon any of these people? Or do you think that's just political blather?
Interesting idea, and truthfully, that hadn't occurred to me before. But you're the idea man, so that's an interesting one. So I don't know. I would say it just depends. The problem is if he starts pardoning all these people, they're clearly guilty.
Yeah, that's true.
So does he do that or not? I mean, I don't know that. Liz Cheney was coming out publicly saying that. If you start investigating the J6, our group that we had, there will be some private citizen out wherever she's at now, not Montana, Wyoming, wherever she's at now. Who cares what she says? I don't. What is Liz Cheney has no power to to enforce repercussions for somebody investigating J6. So I say investigate away. If she gets pardoned. I would investigate anyway and start putting in jail everybody else that was working with her. And, they can still bring out the truth of what happened and tarnish the reputation of all these people. Adam Schiff and a lot of those guys too, they should tarnish them all, even if they're pardoned by Biden. But that is a tough call because if he starts pardoning them, they're clearly guilty. And then that means that you've got every reason to go investigate then. So I don't know. I'm not sure I would make that call.
Folks, you're watching a very special McFiles Monday night with my dear buddy Brad Johnson. I'm actually going to, you got about 5 minutes you can give me? Can you give me about 5 more? If you got a question or two for Brad tonight, folks, please keep it on topic. No, Elvis is not going to come out and sign autographs behind the thing tonight. We cannot give you that. If you got a question for Brad, please ask it right now, and so forth. And again, keep it on topic. What is your take on Trump's cabinet so far? Any people that stand out to you that let me rephrase that question. The 3 best picks in the cabinet, and maybe your couple of concerns you've got that he's picked so far while we're waiting on a question or two, real quick.
Okay, I actually at first when I saw his pick for DOD, I was a little bit surprised by that one and was thinking that was a pretty weird call. But I started looking at Pete Hegseth, who's been very controversial.
Yeah,
I think he's going to get confirmed. It looks pretty good right now. He's had a couple of senators that are key votes that he needs come out and say they're going to vote for him. And he's had Mike Johnson, who's come out as who said that it looks good for him to get confirmed by the Senate. So I think it's looking pretty good. Now, as I said, at first I didn't particularly care for that call, but I started looking at his record. I met that guy once. I don't know him or anything, but I did talk to him once at some event that was going on long before any of this came up, of course. But he has actual, real, honest-to-God, boots-on-the-ground background in this sort of stuff, has had some combat tours. He did have a bronze with V for Valor, which means he did something in combat that was particularly effective, that showed some bravery. So, I mean, he's not a nothing. He's got some background in there that's real. Now, mostly they pick generals to do this, and this is something I've been saying for a long time, trying to advise Trump and his people, is do not pick those 3- and 4-star generals who are retired, because those guys are politicians. They're not the doers. What you need, and Chris, you've heard me say this probably 100 times, but you want to pick the boots-on-the-ground operations guys out of the military, out of the FBI, and out of the intelligence world like the CIA. You want those boots-on-the-ground, real guys that were doing the stuff that those 4-star generals took credit for. Those are the guys that you need in there, and Pete Hegseth is one of those guys. So, like I said, I at first was a little surprised by that pick, sat down and looked at him closely and said, all right, this is dead on. This is a right one. Now, one of the guys that you mentioned that's, his name escapes me, but he's going over to the CIA as going to be the director that's nominated.
Ratcliffe.
Do you remember?
John Ratcliffe.
Yeah, Ratcliffe. John Ratcliffe. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he's the wrong pick for the CIA. The reason I think he's the wrong pick for the CIA is because he doesn't know anything about it. I mean, he was on the Intelligence Oversight Committee for the House. He was at DNI for a while, things like that. So he has read intelligence and understands policy and those sorts of things. But this going to the CIA as director is not policy. This is implementation. And he does not understand this stuff. And I don't know, I may be wrong, I don't know who he's picking to be around him there. I know there's all the transition groups are there now and working on this, so I pray to God that he's picking some old-time veterans, guys like myself, I was there for 25 years in operations. If I go in there, you're not going to fool me with what you say. And if I'm told something by these guys that are around the CIA nowadays, I know how to find out. They say, oh, this is the story. I know where to go look. I know who to ask. I can check out everything that I'm told and get to the bottom of it quite easily. The problem is with a guy like Ratcliffe is he cannot. He doesn't know who to ask. And these guys have run circles around people like him forever. I would say already they're fully prepared for him and are going to run circles around him unless he's got like a guy who's going to be a chief of staff and say 5 or 6 other people around him like me. Like what he really needs is me for chief of staff.
Would you consider going back? If they ask you, would you consider going back?
I'll tell you something. I've always told you no. And you and I have been friends for many years, and I've always said what he needs is somebody like me, but not me. I've always said that. That's a quote I've had forever. But,
that's the truth.
I never wanted to go back into the swamp. And
right.
Anyone who's listened to the show for any time and we're talking has heard me say that before. When they tried to shoot Trump and they winged him in the air, I changed my mind.
Okay.
And now I'm talking to these guys. I would love to be in there if Ratcliffe would consider me, which he won't, because I'm not one of his cronies. I'm not somebody he knows. And you need that chief of staff has to be somebody that he knows and trusts, not some guy that knows how to do the job. You know what I mean? So he's not going to pick based on merit. He's going to pick based on trust. So they won't look at me. But if he magically is listening to your show right now and goes, "Oh my God, this Brad and Chris, they're so right. You know, I'm going to call Brad right now, and if when we get off the show, he calls me, I'll go in and talk to him, and if he wants me, I'd do it."
Yeah.
And I've never said I would do that before Trump got shot. I never said that.
Two great questions for you related to Turkey, and Zella May and then Carol Smith. I'll ask both of them. And first of all, Zella says, do you think that there will be some land grab in Syria by Turkey, the Kurds, Syrians, and Israel possibly? And then Carol Smith's question is an excellent one. She says, does the fact Turkey belong as a NATO member have any bearing at blaming them? That's not a bad question. What's the NATO thing fit in with Turkey? It's always been a complicated relationship since Turkey has gone so far left. But the land grab question is interesting. Do you see Turkey expanding its empire through this? Do you think this is more of the land grab question is not a bad one because, that's Erdogan's wet dream, isn't it? I mean, he wants Turkey to become a new caliphate in the Middle East. He wants to resurrect the Ottoman Empire, Brad. That's what I gather from him. He's got a God complex.
Yeah. I got to work on getting a better God complex for myself. Some small country somewhere. I've been thinking about it. Just anyway, I think both are dead on. I think that's precisely what's happening. NATO absolutely is one of the reasons why you're not seeing any criticism come out of the Biden campaign. As I mentioned earlier, I just made a passing reference to it that the view is that we need Turkey. And there's some things I would disagree with on all of that, but a lot of that is based on the fact that Turkey is the big boy in that area, region of the world. They have a large standing army, not much else, no real Navy or Air Force to speak of, but a large standing army. And they're a part of NATO, so that's something that is significant strategically. There's just no question.
Right.
So absolutely that is a factor. That's completely dead on. The other thing about the land grab is I think that's what this is. And I mentioned Azerbaijan before because when Turkey came in and brought in all those fighters and took back Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan had been trying to get that back from Armenia for decades, and they just weren't able to do it. Every time they went up there, they got their ass kicked.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to do it. Now, when Erdogan came in and the Turks backed Azerbaijan became a puppet state. Now, they're a Turkish people anyway, but they're a puppet state now, Turkey. They're going to do whatever Turkey says. I think this is now setting up the precise same thing. So I think, does Erdogan look at Azerbaijan as his? I would argue that he does.
He probably does.
And I think these guys coming in and taking over Syria, once they run it completely and it's a Sunni fiefdom or whatever you want to call it, I think Erdogan will view it as his. So I think it's precisely that. I think it's precisely a land grab, an expansion of his empire, trying to get back out to the Ottoman Empire reaches that they were. He views Arabs as his, and this is an Arab country.
To my knowledge, this is the only show that has produced that narrative about Turkey. I have not heard. I think we're breaking ground tonight, and I may just re-air this and with that subject line, Turkey behind the Syria situation, because Brad, I think it's a serious look. We've got a little class in the morning we study the Bible and so forth, and I've told the Bible students, I said, Turkey is a player in these days, and it's taking place right in front of us, but I think they're going to play more of a role. I would talk more about that, but I got to run on because I got several great questions for you. Some of them domestic, and I do want to ask you, Dave, Pat, and Deb Dolan, I should say, good to see you guys. Did you see the Black Lives Matter situation today? It seems like they've reared their head now with this verdict with the Daniel Perry situation. That's another big case that had a very favorable ruling. I was proud that the jury found him not guilty. I do not think this young man deserved jail. He didn't do anything wrong but protect those people on that subway. Brad, it is a given. Those people would have died. If this jackanapes would not have been taken down by Daniel Perry, people were going to die. Look, I feel for his family tonight, but I want to tell the Black Lives Matter blank holes, this is not about racism, because I don't give a crap if the guy was yellow, purple, green, salamander color, or turquoise. I don't care. He tried to hurt people, and Daniel Perry did what he did not because he was black, because he was a threat to people's lives. Correct? What say you?
Absolutely correct. There's no doubt about this whatsoever. And let me point out for those Black Lives Matter idiots is that the woman that was at most at threat, that was testified to the fact that she was very afraid that she was going to die in that moment, was a black woman.
Right. So, that's exactly right.
Here's a white guy that jumps in to save a black woman from a crazy guy. Well, where's the racism in that? I mean, the way these guys will operate, they don't. Now, Black Lives Matter, they're not doing this because they think they're right. They're doing this because they know it gets them publicity and followers, because they're the ones that say, oh no, we're the ones that really represent black people, so give us your money and follow us and donate your time to us. And that's what's really going on. This is all about the money. None of this is about justice. And that's why we see these travesties like this.
Yeah. Roger Hooker, question of the agencies, and I know this is a tough question for you. You're a former CIA agent. And I've always said that the rank and file members are the best in the world, Brad. I have a lot of respect. But his question is more about the bureaucracy. Of all the agencies, the three-letter agencies, what's the most dangerous tonight, in your opinion? The bureaucracy. I'm not talking about, the people that work for these people, the agencies, but I'm talking about the bureaucrats.
I understand. In the old days, I would have agreed with you. The rank and file were mostly just, people trying to do a good job and believed in what they were doing in the mission and so on. Those days are gone. The people that are there now are no longer that. They're politicized and weaponized up and down the spectrum of who's in that place. Mostly, this is one of the things you've heard me also say 1,000 times, is these agencies cannot be fixed with who's there. They just can't fix them with who's there. That's one of the messages I personally would love to push to Ratcliffe, just to know you're not going to come in and fix it with those people that are there. The bureaucracy itself, are they, who's the most dangerous? I guess if I was to pick one, I'd have to say DOJ, because the justice system is the cornerstone of society. And I've seen in other countries, I won't go too far into this, but this happened in Colombia, where the narco traffickers using a leftist, rebel group to kill most of the Supreme Court justices that were a problem. And after that, Colombia was never the same. And what they did was they destroyed the cornerstone of the justice system, which in Colombia happened to be the Supreme Court. Here, it's more squarely placed on the back of DOJ. So if DOJ cannot be brought back into the fold, where there are law-abiding, responsible citizens who are trying to do what's best for the nation, if we can't get those people in charge of DOJ, then it's all for naught. Because what happens, you and I are here standing, like just for example, Turkey. Yes, we're the first people to raise this. I guarantee you within a week, you're going to see all of this on national news, and it'll all start right here with this program. They're going to analyze what I was saying, and then they're going to spin it off and say this and add their 2 bits to it and all that. You're going to see all this all over the national news in the next week or so, 10 days, something like that it'll take. So let's say they don't like that because it's an embarrassment to the Biden administration that we say that. If DOJ is corrupt and they come in and arrest us both and take it to jail, are we going to be so anxious to talk about it next time something like this comes up? No. And that's what DOJ can do to destroy the system, by arresting people who are political dissenters who disagree with them versus breaking a law. Right. So it's very, very dangerous.
I'm with you 1,000,000% what you just said. Amy Miller has got an excellent question. Good to see you tonight, dear. My dear friend up in South Dakota, and we love these guys, their families. If people like Clinton, she says, Obama, and other politicians come out on the Epstein Diddy list, which that's an interesting take, because under a Republican DOJ, under a Kash Patel FBI, that this is a growing possibility that it's going to be some intriguing stuff that's going to be revealed. Her question is this: how does this change the political climate for Trump? Does justice get served? Do you think this changes his outlook? What do you think that his I know that people think all this is tabloid. I don't. I think that this list is important because, Brad, there's been some nasty, dirty stuff done under the table by some of these high-level politicians to kids and other things. And look, I've been shocked. I'll be honest with you. I thought Ghislaine Maxwell would have been on Biden's list also beyond Hunter. And I don't doubt that before this is over with, she may get a pardon and she's going to go into Never Never Land. But it's not a bad question. What do you? Is that going to be another question that where you answered about my dog when I go out and she does number 2 and I take my hand in that bag and I have to stick it up and hold the bag 50 feet away from you, or does it give some people clarity on what went down on that plane in Epstein Island with some of these scumbag politicians and Hollywood stars too?
I think it's important, and let's not forget the Hollywood stars that were. What was the? I forget the name of the guy, but he was like a rap guy that was having those sex parties in the basement of his house.
P. Diddy. P. Diddy. And
P. Diddy.
P. Diddy, yeah.
P. Diddy sex parties and stuff.
13
girls all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me say, this has always been this way. I mean, always in human history. There's an old saying that many people will have heard that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what it is. These politicians have gotten themselves into a position where especially the senior ones that have been around for a while have pretty much absolute power. No one goes after them. Do you remember when Joe Biden was out there saying, I'll use a bad word here because I'm quoting him, but he goes, nobody fucks with a Biden. Right. And that was his view on it. Nobody fucks with a Biden. They're above the law. And that is the attitude of these people. Let me remind you of a story I've told you, Chris, many times, just to exemplify this. And if I were overseas, I'm not saying for a fact this happened, this is theoretical, but if I was overseas and I was a CIA guy there on the ground, well, not much happens in that country that I don't know about. So if a certain politician were to come out overseas and go into a house of ill repute and have sex with a 12-year-old boy, he can't do it without me knowing. And if all of his staffers that came with him spent the whole time being able to buy drugs because it was easy and relatively legal to do in this country, then that's what they would spend their time doing. So they were using illegal drugs and screwing underage boys, and what would happen under the law? So you would think, me as a CIA guy, I should have reported all this back, let it go to DOJ and have these guys arrested for having, pedophilia sex with a little kid. But here's how the way the law works, which is very interesting, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, once again. If I had reported it, the only person that would have broken the law was me, and
That's right.
I would have gone to jail.
That's right.
That's the way the laws are set up. You think that this stuff, is any different in D.C.? This is how they view themselves, as that they're above all of that sort of stuff. One other reminder to everybody, and that was the party that the DEA guys had down in Colombia. Speaking of Colombia, they were in Cartagena, and they had this big sex party with a bunch of prostitutes that were provided by the local narco traffickers. And if that's not a form of corruption, I would like another explanation so I understand it better. But that party went on. The only reason this became public is because what was it, Secret Service? Actually, no, it might have been Secret Service. At any rate, I think it was DEA. So they had this party, sex party. The only reason this came to light is because one of the girls said she stayed later or whatever and demanded more money, and they wouldn't pay her. And so the police came in, and it got blown out of the water there and became public because over this money, which, damn, just pay the girl, and stay out of trouble, man. At any rate, that got blown up. Now, ask yourselves, why would these guys think that sort of behavior is okay? It's because everybody does it. All the upper echelon guys. Now, the lower down guys, they don't think they can get away with that stuff. And there are people out in the world that would have looked at that and gone, oh my God, that's not right. That's just not the right way to do this. And once you start getting things paid for by narco traffickers, are you in their pocket? You're bought and paid for. I mean, great there with girls down there. It's not particularly illegal. That's what they want to do. Great, that's what they want to do. But go pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're having narco traffickers pay for it, personally, now, great. I I guess I'm not the best person to decide where the moral line should be drawn, but I see two very distinct situations there. One is you want to go have sex with girls, you pay them for it, they like it, it's not illegal there per se, you'll go ahead. But if you have narco traffickers pay for it, that's a whole hell of a lot worse.
Couple of quick questions, and there was one question that someone asked. I don't know if they took it out. I hope they didn't. But anyway, Peggy Cornish is actually asking it in a different way. She says, "How can you blanket pardon somebody before they're even convicted of something? You can't." And I think we've already covered this, but I'll just make it quick and I'll sort of answer it myself. Look, I don't think it's going to stand under Constitution. Elaine Willard's got a question about them looking, and Dennis Floyd as well. And the consensus is that they are agreeing with what I was saying a while ago to a degree, that it's going to do more harm to the country if we don't at least address what has been done. And you sort of alluded to it a while ago about, Congress looking into these pardons for the son, because it was a broad pardon. And look, I'm no fan of Jon Stewart, but Jon Stewart even called the fact that in the pardon, Joe Biden made the statement that he has been pardoned for crimes up to 11 years ago. And he even made the statement for crimes he's going to commit. And John made the joke. He said, "Be sure to include anything on New Year's Eve this year with Hunter Biden, because there's no telling what's going to happen." And it was a broad pardon. Well, I go back 11 years. I mean, what does Joe know that happened 11 years ago that the country don't know? I mean, it was really dumb.
I can answer that question for you. The day one of the pardon was the day that he was hired by Burisma.
That's what I thought. And that's when Joe put pressure on that prosecutor in the Ukraine to drop the charges. And guess what it was tied to? Aid from America.
That's right.
That's Barack Obama, Brad. That's Barack Obama territory with this. Do you think this blows up in their face ultimately?
It depends on what I would say Kash Patel does, assuming he gets the nod from Senate and gets in there, and who he brings in. I mean, he needs to fire everybody there and start reaching out to the hinterlands and bring in people from Texas and other states where there's patriots out there who believe in the Constitution and supporting U.S. law. If he can bring those people in and start prosecuting some of these cases that have the people around Hunter Biden. He didn't pardon his brother. So, is he going to? If he's not pardoned his brother, the brother got a hold of some of that Chinese money. And so, they can go after those people. So it just depends on what happens, whether they get away with it or not. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Final question, and folks, some of your questions or statements, and I'll get to all of you after we let Brad go, because he's been a camper to being up with us tonight. The J6 situation, do you think, it's a given Trump's already sort of said it today. He said it in that NBC interview. By the way, that lady was, the media, the Twitter land is crucifying her for her stupidity. She was way out of her league trying to trap Donald Trump with answers, because he was eating her lunch like there was no tomorrow, and she was trying to trap him with the J6 stuff, and he flat out told her, he said, "You doggone right, I'm going to pardon him, probably on the first day I'm in office." But I go back to what I said about the harm that's been done, Brad. Is there going to be any payback? And when I say payback, I'm not talking revenge, but is there going to be any restitution? And all these years these people have lost, the money, the jobs, the careers. There's a financial loss. Many of these people have lost everything they've had. Are they going to get any justice from this when this is even if they get pardoned by Trump? Is there any civil solution, any civil remedy that they can sue somebody? And who do they sue to get retribution and recompense for what's happened to them? Because I believe it was a sham.
Oh, yeah, and there's no question it was a sham. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about it, and I've talked about it in previous interviews, that these guys were suppressing evidence that would, clear these people of any wrongdoing. Now, Yes, there are ways to go about it. If I were in Trump's shoes, I'm not sure the pardon would be what I would do. I would maybe try to, release him without bail, sort of thing.
Right.
And then kind of go back and look at all of this so that you can prove that there was a lot of evidence. Exculpatory evidence is what that's called. Exculpatory meaning it would prove them innocent. But there was a lot of exculpatory evidence that was suppressed, which that is go to jail stuff. So I think I would try to reopen the case and go back and look at all of that and dig through so that you could have those cases overturned by a judge and these people found not guilty. That would be what I would try to do. And then those people that covered up the exculpatory information, those guys would be criminally liable then at that point.
Totally.
And then also, then there would be civil possibilities for them as well. And I don't know, now you're getting really into the stuff where we need a lawyer to come.
We need a lawyer. I've got a lawyer coming soon. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I think they might be able to have a class action suit. That would be the real way to go after
That's a great
those
point.
guys. And you can do those sorts of things after the agency's involved. So that would be the way to go about it. Now, like I said, you need a lawyer to get into that in detail, but that would be the way to do this, in my opinion.
One final question for you is mine. Have you heard anything on these drones that have been being sighted over Staten Island, New Jersey, parts of New York, and nobody can seem to understand? In fact, there was one spotted, I understand, over Mar-a-Lago. Have you had any insight or any intel on that as to what that is, or is just some kid having too many drinks one night, flying his Christmas present, and people freaking out this the Chinese about to invade America? You got any intel about that, Johnson, before I let you go?
No, I don't. Drones are so easy to obtain and relatively cheap depending on what you get. A drone that's, say, the size of a laptop computer sort of thing are everywhere, and they have cameras and you can download to them and record and all that sort of stuff. So they're everywhere. Some of the kids get out there and fly these around. There's even drone competitions where you're flying through hoops at high speeds and stuff like that. So they're everywhere, and some of the people are really talented at running these things. Now, if you see a drone that's the size of a full-blown airplane out there cruising around, it's a different
ballgame.
A lot more expensive, yeah. So I would be more worried about those, but I haven't heard reports of that sort of thing. And those you can mount weapons on and stuff when they get that big. So I don't know, these little drones around, I would say there's so many hundreds of thousands of them out there. God only knows who's flying over what at any one time. I'm sure they have people trying to fly drones over Mar-a-Lago pretty much daily.
Do you think Trump is in greater danger now than he even was before the election, before this inauguration? I'll let you go after this.
Well, I certainly hope not. I hope that the Secret Service, who's responsible for his protection, after the embarrassing idiocy they've shown, in these previous incidents, has tightened things up. He's the president-elect now, which is a different thing. So I'm assuming he's got the full-size crew watching out for him and stuff like that now. And by the way, if the Secret Service doesn't get its head chopped off after he comes to inauguration, oh my God, that's a huge mistake. I actually hope that the Elon Musk stuff goes somewhere, because
I do too.
A good government reorganization and cleaning and elimination of a lot of the nonsense that's there and the overlap would only be to all of our good. And they need to sell this in the sense of efficiency in government and cutting taxes and having more. If we could save the government, $1 trillion, I would say,
it's a lot of money.
We're going to give you the people of the United States of America a $500 billion break in tax. Other half we're going to give to for education and to help people with this and that and the other, and that you don't have to wait till 2043 for an appointment with an autism specialist.
Far be it for me to advise President Trump, but if he would like to split that $1 trillion up among all of us and not count the kids, then I don't want my 5-year-old grandson with a check for $100,000 in his hand. But if he's wanting to split that up between us adults, hey, I'm all for that. I'll advise him to do that, but that's just McDonald here. I think nobody would mind that. But it's always a pleasure. I'm hoping, I'm truly mean this. We got Christmas coming up, but I hope to get to see you before the first of the year again. We did the breakfast thing. I owe you a steak for dinner. It's been a pleasure. Another great year in the books. We're going to be 7 years old in January. You have been part of this journey from the beginning, and you're a dear friend. And this is a great stuff tonight again. And I just appreciate your insight, and I appreciate you being my friend. Appreciate you coming on whenever I ask you, and we deeply appreciate you tonight. And I know these people do. I always get good results. And intelreform.org is Brad's website. Please visit it. He's got a lot of this stuff on there. And you let him know that you always enjoy him here. I know he'll appreciate that, and I will too. I'll give you 1 minute, final thought, and I'll let you go, and I'll get to these people myself and scream at them.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to have you admit in front of all these witnesses that you owe me a statement. I'm a McDonald's man. So, just your namesake gets old for the burgers.
Well, after you told me the turkey story, I had to rethink the McDonald thing. I said I better up my game to the. But anyway, that's an inside joke. But go ahead.
Well, I would appreciate that you. I appreciate that you mentioned the website intelreform.org. I've got to say it's been an interesting journey for me doing all this stuff. I put out a lot of news like this Turkish thing. My stuff typically gets picked up by the mainstream media and the press and stuff 2 weeks or so, or a week, or 10 days after I report it, all the damn time. They follow me very closely and use me to the basis of their news reporting, and never ever give credit where credit is due. By the way, I might add, but my website is also under constant attack. I mean, I like the things I've just said about Turkey. You probably on your website will be faced with a state attack because it's a lot different. My website just got taken down again. We're building it back up now, and I've got it behind a lot of walls where it's going to be a lot harder to attack. But it just got taken down. It's in shambles right now, but another week I'll have it built back up. But please, everybody who's interested, go take a look at intelreform.org, and I guarantee you over time you're going to see stuff there that will be reported later on to the news that these guys pick up. So I certainly appreciate, Chris, your show and your friendship and all of that over the years, and love to come back and talk to your audience. So one of the best audiences I know of out there, and I do a lot of interviews over time and a lot of different shows. So I appreciate your audience as much as anybody's. Any
audience that will listen to me every night, run my mouth for an hour and a half, and not have a mutiny, they deserve audience of the year as far as I'm concerned. I'm just grateful that they're here every night. Hey, just a question just popped up, and my brother sent me something, and if you can make it, I know you got to go. The Mount Hermon thing, where Israel captured Mount Hermon. There's a biblical relevance to that mountain, but is there strategic relevance to that because they said that they feel like that the story is that this is I'll just read you the tweet. It says Israel has conquered it, the highest mountain in Syria, its peak reaching 2814 meters. Syria's capital is only 40 kilometers away, now within the range of Israel's artillery shells. Do you think that this is barren, that Israel's going to take up the bombing now and let America sit this one out? Is it any reason that Mount Hermon is so important? Because that's the highest mountain range in Syria.
Yeah, that is significant strategically. That area is what is commonly kind of called the Golan Heights. I don't know if
the Golan Heights,
specifically in the Golan Heights, but that's where all those high peaks are. And from those peaks, you either look right down on Tel Aviv or you look right back down onto Damascus, or into Syria. So it is definitely strategically important, tactically important, and something that they definitely want. With the bedlam in Syria, this is the perfect time to snatch it, so good for them for doing it. I would say mainly this is defensive. I mean, yes, it is an offensive platform. I felt the same
thing. I did. I felt the same thing. Go ahead.
It's basically a defensive move on their part. Get the high ground, and set up there and get yourself dug in and, hunker down and hope no one comes for you.
Life in the Middle East. I will tell you this now. When I take my dog out tomorrow and she's doing her job, I'm going to think of you, Johnson. I just want you to know that.
And you can compare yourself to President Trump. Just you guys are going to be brothers at that point, you know?
We're going to be brothers, man. Sketch stuff as always, brother. Listen, I hope to see you before the end of the year, man, for steak. And in case I don't see you in person, have a Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you before then for sure. But I'll see you. We'll get you back on in a few weeks, first of the year for sure, my friend. God bless you, and I appreciate you so much. I do.
Same. Thanks, Chris.
Have a good night. Brad Johnson, everybody. Put some fire in that house for him. What a good guy right there. And I tell you what, you're not going to get any better person with intel than that right there in Brad Johnson. And he is my friend, and I'm proud to call him that. My goodness, he hit a home run tonight. I hope that you took away what he was saying about Turkey tonight, and that's breaking. That's a breaking news story that Turkey was behind this insurgency that got rid of Bashar al-Assad. We're going to follow that, and when you hear about it on the national news, you can smile and say, "Ha ha! We heard that on the McFiles Monday night." And Brad Johnson and Chris talked about it. I've been telling the Bible students for months Turkey was going to play a role in these end times, and sure enough, that was given to us tonight to confirm. I have to admit I didn't think about Turkey, but Brad sort of stirred my pure mind of remembrance, and the map we showed this morning in the study, Turkey was to the north, and I mentioned Turkey. So it's going to be an interesting play, and all these other stories will, fall hand in hand. I do want to read a couple of comments that I saw during the time we were talking, and it was Yolanda Perez. She made a great comment, and I want to read that. She says, "There sure is something to get out of Biden to be put in record for the history books. That's why the Republicans should have impeached him just as they did Trump twice." Yolanda, I cannot agree with that more. I think that to get it on the record that he was impeached, even if it did not get through the Senate, which it wouldn't have, it needed to go on record, and it did not. And I think that is an excellent point, because if anybody has done impeachable offenses, it is Joseph Blanken Biden. Peter Mayorkas needs to be impeached, should have been impeached. Merrick Garland should have been put in jail for the criminalization of weaponizing the DOJ. Christopher Wray should have been right in the next cell beside him for what they did to Trump at Mar-a-Lago. How they treated Trump in this raid on his home relating this document case that is now a foregone conclusion. It's done. It's gone. Because it was always a sham. We knew it was a sham. The Bragg case is going to follow suit. Fannie Willis's case is falling apart by the second. And this whole lawfare against Trump was illegal. Look, the Russia hoax was illegal. What they did to people during that Russia hoax, both impeachments were a sham. But yet Trump the history books down the road, when Trump is dead and gone, if the Lord's tarried that long, will have that written about him in the history books for the generations to come that are ahead of us, when all of us folks now are a foregone thought of history. Yolanda, I think that's an excellent statement. I think I read that. I didn't want to lessen the blow during Brad's interview because I wanted it to sort of stand alone tonight. I think that is an excellent, excellent observation. And the Republicans dropped the ball in not doing that. It should have been on the record. And whether it succeeded or not, hey, they didn't care whether Trump's impeachment. They knew good and well they weren't going to get a guilty plea or guilty verdict. Well, we wasn't going to get one either on Biden, but at least it would have been on record that he was impeached. Look, Bill Clinton, that situation with Monica Lewinsky, I've just got to say this, folks. Look, the Monica Lewinsky stuff was tawdry, tabloid, sexual stuff. And I know people got all bent out of shape about it. we had Buzz Patterson many years ago that had come on the show. He came in one time, and Buzz was in the White House with Bill Clinton, and he has told me privately, he said it publicly, that day, that infamous day when all this stuff went on with Monica Lewinsky, Clinton, I should say, lost the nuclear codes, couldn't find them. And Buzz was the one that found them. That was the part the media just didn't even talk about. All they wanted to talk about, and all the right wanted to talk about, was Clinton's sex life. Look, while that was bad, it's not a third, a half, a hundredth as bad as what Joe Biden did to this country in 4 years, and the malfeasance of office, and the criminalization, and the damage he has done to millions of lives in this country. This border issue has taken innocent life. Robin Lakin, the young lady from Georgia, my home state, that mother up in the Northeast that was raped on a running trail by those 4 immigrants, illegal aliens. Her life is gone. The number of people that have been killed in this country by DUIs, by people that should not even be here, that's on Joe Biden's hands tonight. And we couldn't even get a Republican Congress to see that as being impeachable. Because we had the House for the last 2 years. And we got rid of McCartney, and it turned out that Johnson was as feckless and useless as he was. There was a lesson that was learned in that. I don't think it was learned. I'll just say it like this. It should have been learned, but we didn't. Yolanda, it's a great point. Great point. Those were far more impeachable offenses than an intern having sex with the president in a White House. And I'm not trying to gloss that over, folks, but in light of the danger and the damage and the deadliness of what happened to this nation over 4 years, Mayorkas needs to be in jail tonight. Merrick Garland needs to be in freaking jail for allowing the FBI and the DOJ and these agencies to do to Trump what they've done to him for 4 years. And he will walk away into the sunset laughing his butt off knowing that he got away with it. They will do it again. And the only thing that I would say tonight, folks, and again, you can have your own opinion about this. I think it was Dennis Floyd that said it. There are some things that you cannot continue to allow happening without a response. And this corruption has got to be addressed. It's what got Trump in trouble the first time with his first election. He promised he was going to clean the swamp, and he didn't. And the swamp come back and did what they did in 2020. Even though it's worked out for the best, I think he's in a far stronger place tonight than he would have ever been in 2020. So the Lord had a way of taking a bad thing and working it out for the good. The Lord's good at that. But he's got a chance to do some real change and to make some people pay for what has been done. And this is not about revenge, folks. This is not revenge. Revenge is useless. It's a futile thing to try to do. The only people that lose in revenge are those taking it. But justice and revenge are two different things. And if we don't see justice done to these people that have tried to pervert justice, they will pervert it again if they get back in power. And I would not doubt that if they got back in power, if they were in power tonight, Trump would probably be in jail or worse. And he better come to grips with that tonight. And I know he's trying to be nice and he's trying to be a unifier. You can't unify with evil. I don't know what part of that we as a society cannot get in our heads. History has been littered with the blood of millions when nations have tried to pacify and not confront evil. Ask Nazi Germany. Ask Great Britain. Ask France. Ask all these empires when evil was not confronted. What happens to Europe? 55 million people lay dead because a madman was not confronted as he should have been by the nations of Europe. They thought he was just a joke, and it turned out that he wasn't a joke. And it's not a cry for revenge tonight, but it is a cry for justice. And I feel for these J6ers. I feel for Roger Stone tonight. I feel for Paul Manafort. None of these men would have been in jail. None of these things would have happened to any of these men had they not been involved with President Trump. The government wouldn't have cared. Their crimes were pale in comparison to Hunter Biden and others that have walked free. And it's eating at me by the day that I see Trump sort of backpedaling a little bit and saying, well, we need to unify the country. You cannot unify the country if you're pacifying evil. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. Because the evil and that element will never be in unity with what's right. They just won't. Chris Amen himself. Chris Amen himself. Chris will amen himself. And folks, please, this is not a chat bar while we're talking. Listen. 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 This is not a chat bar. Our country's in a mess tonight. Our country's in a mess. And justice needs to be served. And in this case, I'm with Brad. I think that a class action lawsuit by these J6ers is warranted. And it needs to sting. And it needs to hurt. You know, that kid up in Kentucky, and I can't think of his name, the one that sued CNN and won. It's amazing you ain't heard CNN slandering anybody anymore, have you? Not recently. They learned their lesson. At least I think they did. Maybe a few more lawsuits like that will get the media's attention and get the left's attention. That, you know, you had your little 5 minutes of fame on MSNBC gloating what you did to the right. Right, get your checkbook out and get your lawyer. Because hell is coming. And it needs to come. You can't have unity with evil, folks. You just can't. Just can't have unity with evil. I'll amen myself tonight. I'll amen myself. And Peggy, Clarence Thomas is another good example as well. Rittenhouse. Yep, that's him. That's him. Alrighty. Any other questions? Yolanda Perez. Excellent observation tonight. And you're absolutely right. Joe Biden, that should have been on record. And it will never be. It will not be done before January. And he will walk free, and history will record Joe Biden as not having anything other than just being a left-wing leaning president. And it should not be that. It should not be so. Because what he did was beyond impeachable to this country. It truly was. Any other questions, comments, real quick? Jason Rankin, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you as well. Good to see you as well. Good to see you as well. Any questions, any comments? Mark Cason's in the house tonight. Good to see you. Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. Any questions tonight, folks? I want to thank my buddy Brad Johnson. We've got some. Let's see here. I think this is. Did I download the right video? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, here's that guy's picture again. This is the kid, Luigi Maggioni. I guess he's Italian. He is the person of interest that has been charged in the execution of Brian Thompson. He's the CEO of United Healthcare. He was a valedictorian. This kid was a valedictorian of the Gilman School. It was a private school, 40,000 a year, all boys school in Baltimore. And he's got some weird quotes, but as Brad said, it may ultimately be just simply a case of he was just unhappy with his insurance plan. I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case. We'll see. We'll see. We will see. We will see. All righty. I'm going to let you go tonight. By the way, this is funny. I've got to bring this in. I'm not a Yellowstone fan, but I thought this was pretty good. There's a character on there named Beth, and I cannot agree with this more. All I want for Christmas is for Beth to spend one day on The View. Now, you Yellowstone fans will get that, and you will give a hearty amen to that. James R. would be proud. All I could say, James R. would be given a run for his money if that was to happen. If that was to happen. All righty. Did you have a good time tonight? Did you enjoy the show? We hope you did. And I will be back here with you tomorrow morning, as we're always on in the morning. And we're going to be a little early tomorrow morning, probably 8:30 to 9:30 with our Bible study tomorrow. And then Wednesday morning will be later in the morning, probably around 10:30, 11. But we'll have one every day this week, except, well, we may be on early Friday. Yeah, we may be on early Friday. So we're going to have them the rest of the week. We're going to have a week where we're going to have one every day with you this week. So we'll be on every day. I've really enjoyed these Bible studies. They're on the Faith Network. You can't see them here on the News Network. You X folks, y'all have been showing up in record numbers over there. We appreciate our X audience tonight and our Facebook audience. That was great questions, folks. Great insight. We thank you for those that participated in the right manner in the show, and we're grateful for that. We are. And thank you all for making it a great night. And thanks, Brad Johnson, for everything. If you got something out of the show, put some fire in that house, and I will see you back here. Anyway, Roger, no tribunals. I don't think it's going to be tribunals, Roger. Your question is legitimate, but no, I don't. I don't think they need tribunals. No, we just need to clean the justice system out. And, I'll leave that up to Trump. I don't think the tribunal is going to make a big difference. I think that, look, I'll put it like this. If Liz Cheney, and I'll just show you the post tonight that, I don't know what, I'm trying to think which, this was one of the things that was by the one of the WND. This is WorldNet Daily. Liz Cheney, J6 committee hid evidence exonerating Trump's call for guard troops. That's not the story. The story is what Liz Cheney's doing tonight. Brad alluded to it. She's threatening people that go after her, and she says they're going to be hell to pay if you do. Well, from who, Liz? You can't even get a job at the local saloon in Podunk Collar, Wyoming right now. You got trounced 70-30 by an unknown politician in Wyoming, Liz. Who's gonna give payback for you? You ain't got a home in the Republican Party. The Democrats use you like a wet dish rag, and you've been tossed to the side. You've got no cover tonight, Liz. So who is hell going to be paid for by who? Your dad? Your warmongering dad? I don't think so. They're scared, Roger. My point in saying that to you is they're scared. And when you get a bully, and you get people like Liz Cheney, and you take them, and you call their bluff, and you indict them, you find out real quickly that they will crumble like a pile of cards. And I don't even think you'll need a tribunal. Oh, they won't need a tribunal. And in the right court, they will be dealt with accordingly. And I think Trump is smart enough. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's smart enough and wise enough to know how to handle that and put the right person at the DOJ that's going to be able to handle it. But it's got to happen. That's just my 2 cents as I go out here tonight. Thank you all for being with me. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll have somebody on tomorrow night. Our prayers for Lori Mills tonight. She hated that she couldn't be with us, but she'll be back Monday night, a week from tonight, late. I'll see you in the morning on the face side. I'll see you back here tonight on the east side. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. It's a wonderful time of the year. We're grateful that you're here with us tonight. And, I'm just in the mood for a Christmas song. Are y'all in the mood for a Christmas song? It's Christmas time. Is that right? I just think it's Christmas time. And I'm just sort of in the Christmas spirit. And if you'll give me 1 minute, I haven't been able to play a Christmas song in forever, but I'm going to play one tonight. Let's see, because it's that time of the year. It's that time of the year. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, everybody.
Frosted window panes, candles gleaming inside, painted candy canes on the tree. Santa's on his way, he's filled his sleigh with things for you and for me. It's that time of year when the world falls in love. Every song you hear seems to say, Merry Christmas, may your New Year dreams come true. And this song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same thing too. Song you hear seems to say, Merry Christmas, may your New Year dreams come true. And this song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same.